The Philippine Sea, 0300 hours. The water is a deep obsidian black, reflecting nothing but the cold light of the stars. On the bridge of the USS Ronald Reagan, the quiet is absolute until a red light begins to pulse on the tactical console. This isn't a drill. To the west, the Chinese People's Liberation Army Navy has been flexing its muscles, moving its own carriers into what they call the first island chain. They think they are the ones setting the pace. They think they have cornered the market on naval dominance in the Pacific. But then, the horizon begins to change. The Ronald Reagan is joined by the USS Carl Vinson and the USS Theodore Roosevelt. 3 American supercarriers, 3 nuclear-powered Titans, all converging on a single point in the Philippine Sea. The media says it is a show of force. The pundits say it is a warning. But those people are wrong. It is not a warning. It is a response to a secret flaw in the Chinese Navy that Beijing has been desperately trying to hide. The United States just set a trap, and China is already sailing straight into it. To understand why the US Navy rushed 3 carriers to this specific patch of ocean, we have to talk about something the Chinese military rarely discusses: their logistics. China has built ships faster than any nation since World War II, but they forgot one very important detail. You cannot fight a war if your ships run out of fuel, food, and missiles 3 days after leaving port. Most of China's fleet is designed for green water operations, meaning they stay close to home. When they push into the blue water of the Philippine Sea, they become incredibly vulnerable. Their destroyers have limited fuel capacity, and their replenishment ships, the tankers that keep the fleet moving, are few and far between. The US Navy knows this. By rushing 3 carriers to the Philippine Sea, the United States has forced the Chinese Navy to keep its own fleet at sea far longer than it was designed for. It is a logistics trap. For every day the Chinese ships stay out there trying to monitor 3 different American strike groups, they are burning through their limited supplies. The sarcastic expert says China built a Ferrari, but they realized too late that the nearest gas station is 500 miles behind them. Let us do the math of the triple strike group. A single carrier air wing consists of roughly 75 aircraft. When you bring 3 carriers together, you are looking at over 225 advanced jets, including the F-35C Lightning II and the EA-18G Growler. When these 3 groups operate in a layered formation, they create a radar and sensor network that covers over 100,000 square miles of ocean. In the year 2026, this isn't just about planes. It is about sensor fusion. The US Navy is using a system called NIFC-CA, which stands for Naval Integrated Fire Control Counter-Air. This system allows a jet from the Ronald Reagan to identify a target and send the data to a destroyer in the Theodore Roosevelt strike group, which then fires a missile. The target never even sees the ship that killed it. By using 3 carriers, the US Navy has created a digital web that China's older sensor technology simply cannot penetrate. China's primary carrier in this region is the Shandong. On paper, it is a formidable ship. But in reality, it has a ski jump deck instead of the steam or electromagnetic catapults used by the American carriers. This is the secret flaw that the 3-carrier rush exploits. Because of the ski jump, Chinese jets like the J-15 cannot take off with a full load of fuel and weapons. They are forced to choose. Do they want to fly far, or do they want to carry missiles? They cannot do both. By positioning 3 carriers in the Philippine Sea, the US Navy has placed itself just outside the effective range of a fully armed Chinese air wing. The American F-35 jets can refuel in midair and carry a massive internal payload. The Chinese jets, meanwhile, are essentially playing a defensive game with one hand tied behind their backs. The Shandong is a boxer with a great punch but no reach, and the US Navy just stepped 3 inches out of its hitting zone. As we mentioned in our previous deep dives, the year 2026 is the year of Project Hellscape. While the 3 carriers draw all the attention on the surface, the water beneath them is crawling with thousands of unmanned systems. The carriers act as the motherships for underwater drones like the Orca Extra Large Unmanned Undersea Vehicle. These drones are currently laying smart mines along the paths the Chinese fleet must take to return to port. The trap is simple. The 3 carriers stay in the Philippine Sea, acting as the ultimate bait. The Chinese fleet stays out to monitor them, exhausting their crews and their fuel. When the Chinese fleet finally turns back to replenish, they find that their safe quarters have been seeded with invisible autonomous threats. It is the ultimate wait-and-see strategy. Let us look at the attrition economy of this Philippine Sea standoff. It costs the United States Navy approximately $6.5 million per day to operate a single carrier strike group. For 3 groups, that is roughly $19.5 million a day. That sounds expensive until you look at China's side of the ledger. Because China lacks a global logistics network, they have to mobilize nearly 60% of their entire regional support fleet just to keep their task force at sea against the Americans. The logistics trap is draining Beijing's naval budget at a rate 3 times higher than the American expenditure. The US Navy is essentially buying a victory by forcing China to spend money they don't have on a standoff they can't win. In the year 2026, the winner of the war isn't the one with the biggest guns. It is the one who still has a functioning economy at the end of the month. While the carriers are playing their tactical game, the Maven Smart system is performing the ultimate intelligence sweep. Maven is an artificial intelligence program that has been integrated into the 3-carrier sensor web. It is currently analyzing the thermal signature of every Chinese ship in the Philippine Sea. Why? Because Chinese engines are notorious for overheating when pushed to their limits for extended periods. Maven has identified that 4 of China's newest destroyers are showing significant engine stress. This is the secret flaw in action. By rushing 3 carriers and forcing a high-speed pursuit, the US Navy has literally broken the engines of China's frontline ships without firing a single shot. The ocean is now transparent, and the Chinese Navy's mechanical failures are being broadcast in high definition to the Pentagon. There is a psychological component to the 3-carrier rush. In Chinese military doctrine, base is everything. If the US Navy sends 1 carrier, China can ignore it. If they send 2, it is a challenge. But 3 is an existential threat to Chinese naval prestige. Beijing is now politically forced to keep its fleet in the Philippine Sea to avoid looking weak to its own domestic audience. They are sailing straight into the American trap because their own propaganda won't let them turn around. The sarcastic expert says, the US Navy didn't just bring carriers, they brought a mirror. They are showing China exactly how unprepared they are for a real blue water fight, and China is too proud to look away. While the 3 carriers are the stars of the show, they are supported by a ghost fleet of unmanned surface vessels. These small, low-profile boats are equipped with the Sewit Block 3 electronic warfare system we discussed in our last video. These boats are broadcasting fake radar signatures that make it look like there are actually 6 American carriers in the Philippine Sea. China's satellites are seeing dozens of high-value targets, forcing them to spread their limited resources even thinner. This digital fog is the final piece of the trap. The US Navy is using 3 real carriers to hide 100 invisible threats. China is chasing ghosts while their real fleet is running out of time and fuel. The rush of the USS Ronald Reagan, the USS Carl Vinson, and the USS Theodore Roosevelt to the Philippine Sea wasn't a show of force. It was a surgical strike against the Chinese Navy's greatest weakness, its inability to sustain a long-term, high-intensity blue water conflict. The trap has been sprung. China's engines are failing, their logistics are collapsing, and their face is on the line. The United States has proven that in the year 2026, the best way to win a naval war is to let the enemy defeat themselves. If you want to stay updated on how the US Navy is using logistics warfare to reshape the Pacific, make sure you hit that subscribe button. We are tracking the next phase of Project Hellscape and the secret developments of the Orca drone next week. Thanks for watching, and remember, in the Philippine Sea, it is not what you see that kills you. It is what you didn't realize you were missing, like fuel, engines, and a way back home.